Now, I'm hoping to learn a little bit more about your society. For starters, do you have a preferred politically correct name for what you would like to be referred to? I know the term grays is a little strange since you're more white than gray anyway, and the term Zeta could refer to 1,079 different life forms. So, do you have a preferred name for your species?
There are many colorations, not just white or gray or any other. Zeta is perfectly acceptable as is the region that we're in. And we're not really using a name the way you're using it. So Zeta-grey is the one that has been used also by this person when terming interactions with my kind. I'm not really having another one, but of course you can also make one up the same way as the Leonard idea in case Zeta-grey is acceptable, is very used in your world from your internet collective at least, so people looking at their idea of interactions with people of my kind will most likely find it by this. Of course, I could give you another name, but that it would likely not be found and shared in the same fashion as when I'm using the one that you're aware of. From my understanding, it's about practicality.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so for the people listening who aren't very familiar with the Zeta-greys, can you please describe what you personally or the Zeta-greys in general look like physically?
There are various sizes in, again, this term that would now be used for the general collective of what has been termed the Zeta-greys. There are also beings that might be of a gray nature, that are of greater height, even your height or bigger, but that are not necessarily located or tied to the Zeta system. And of course, there are also beings in the Zeta system of a very different nature than what has been termed as a gray. So that's also why we are combining those particular names now in this interaction to make sure that we're referring to the particular genetic strain that has become known in this term that is about approximately 1.5 meters on average, as there's some genetic variety. As what I'm looking now at, for example, if I would be standing next to this person, I would be a similar height, even though this person is currently sitting down on a chair. So there's quite some alterations. Perhaps a child that's not quite in the teenage years in your world would have a similar size to my kind, what you call such. But again, there's some variety in what genetic strain you're talking about, but on average, we are still more genetically similar and looks similar than, for example, in your world where there's greater variety among your peoples. What you might term or view as our eyes are much bigger than yours. They're a darkish coloration, no matter how the skin might be colored. It is Skin is not necessarily, as you shared, a whitish or grayish coloration. There can be various hues. Some much darker than what you might perhaps still term gray, so you wouldn't see it as gray anymore. Some have even a brownish, greenish tinge, leathery look to it. Even some orange or bluish hue are possible in some instances. We are more what you might term fragile. We don't have what you consider a lot of body fat or muscle mass. We are, even compared to the person that I'm talking to, that I am understanding it's quite what you call skinny for your kind. I'm still much more thin looking. We're all much more. Something I'm picking up right now that might not just describe my look sufficiently, but from your people's understanding, it's something I'm finding in this person's mind that explain our nature also much easier understandable, perhaps more relatable, is the idea of a person that works a lot with your electronics. He doesn't understand this. There's a particular, I'm not quite picking up the right name from your society, but there is a name for somebody who works a lot with electronics, who wears often what you consider enhancement of the eyesight.
Um,
Perhaps nerd or geek.
oh yes. Yeah.
It's the latter term is perhaps better from what I'm finding in this person. The geek idea. So somebody who is perhaps not so much sporty or fashion, what you call such, an alteration of the looks and the idea of appearing in a certain way to other people, but more is his or her idea of being centered in life is more the idea of working with electronic gadgets in this case, or being centered around a particular topic they wish to achieve. So they're not much in the idea of direction outside of this. There's also a lot of connection with those beings, with the collective consciousness, as you're called, such through electronic gadgets. So this might not describe much of my looks, but perhaps makes it me more relatable to some people in your world. But something that's also much different to people in your world and looks idea is, of course, that the heads are much bigger in comparison to the body size. So your babies, for example, would be more similar in this regard in relation of body to the rest, to the head. But again, our body fat would be much less. And of course, we're tall, and your baby is just the idea of the head in relation to the side of the body would be similar.
Do you have bones like we do?
There's something like a bone structure. We don't have an exoskeleton, as you call this. It's also inside of the body, just as in your case, yes. But it's much more malleable.
So more like...
It's not as dense.
So is it more like what we call cartilage, like dolphins have? More bendable?
Yes, that's a good term.
Okay, now about your eyes, like, I've always wondered why they're so big and dark. I just thought, like, that was the natural progression of evolution. Like, that's the more ideal way for eyes to be. But, then I learned about, like, the felines and the reptiles and the humans who don't necessarily have large black eyes. So I'm wondering, like, do you know what the I guess the right term would be evolutionary advantage is of having large black eyes with no whites in them?
It's not the same in all our community. It has this. There are still different sizes. A lot of this is also artificially enhanced. Some are also having more of a roundish shape. Some are having more of an oval shape. I'm having more of an oval shape. So what you might consider the cliche depiction is not the standard for everybody. But in general, a lot of higher evolved what you consider species and races are having bigger eyes, maybe not to the extreme degree that we might have in comparison to you. But obviously it allows more light to come in.
What does your vision look like? Is it similar to humans, or, can you see, like, the full spectrum of light, and do you have X-ray vision or anything like that?
I can see a wider perspective. Like some of your females can have a wider perspective than the males. For us, the comparison would still be much larger. I can almost look around without turning my head. That's a great advantage. And yes, the color spectrum is different. I can see colors you can, and maybe even vice versa. Or the perception or interpretation of the body would be different.
Do your eyes blink like ours do?
No.
How do you hydrate?
They don't close or open the same way as yours.
How do you keep them hydrated? Do you need to keep them hydrated? As we do?
I don't have to apply external hydration if this is what you're referring. They are self-hydrating. There's what you consider perhaps water flowing through them, but it's not the idea that the eyes are opening and closing, therefore hydrating the outside of the eye. It's more flowing through the eye. But that's the case for me. There might be others in a general species that you term Zeta-greys. They're, again, various beings over here in this particular region of this nature that have different functions of going about such. I could perhaps go wrong and root for some others of theirs, but the beings that have connected me over here said our times are limited, so there's perhaps not the time for connecting to others in this interaction, and I might have to connect then back to the reptiles before we could employ such. So from your understanding of time, it would have been reserved to another interaction.
Yeah, I guess we just have time for a couple more questions. Are there any Zeta races that have whites in their eyes or irises like we do?
There are some, yes. It's not
Oh,
as in yours, but it might look like this to you.
okay.
Can you say where it is that you live or spend most of your time?
On a ship.
Okay. Are you allowed to say like what region you spend most of your time in? I mean, I'm just curious.
Well, if you're asking the region where the ship located, the Zeta-reticuli, yes.
Oh, cool.
Not
Uh,
necessarily on the planet though, but the region, yes.
okay. So do you spend most of your time on the ship or on a planet?
On a ship, but it's possible to basically teleport to the planet if it need be.
Okay. So I mean, like, what is your house or your home like? I mean, do you have kind of like a personal, I don't know, apartment or house or just your own room on the ship or anything like that?
You would perhaps consider an apartment.
Okay. Uh, just out of curiosity, what does it look like? Do you have like sofas or beds or uh, any wall furnishings or anything like that?
Not necessarily wall furnishings. There's not much what you consider perhaps artwork, and most furniture come out and in off the walls, so there's very saving of space. But there is a place for resting,
Okay.
charging batteries.
Um, I know that some Zeta-greys have something kind of like a girlfriend or wife. I know it's a dumb question, but do you have a girlfriend or wife?
Not what you would call this.
Okay.
There's a person who's somewhat linked to me, but it's not like we're formally married and live together and have romantic relationship in that matter.
Okay. Um, so I mean, I know there's probably some stuff you're not allowed to talk about, which is fine. I understand. But can you say if you're involved in any of the hybrid programs or what your job is?
Well, I'm aware of hybrid programs. I'm aware of some of those taking place. I have been involved with taking genetic samples, but I'm not donating my own genetics. I'm not directly involved with it to the degree that you might imagine.
Okay.
But
Uh,
yes, injecting certain ideas or taking a sample from a specimen, numerous planets, including yours.
so what would you say your main job is?
A doctor, perhaps?
Okay.
Well, I might appear as a doctor to you. A researcher, scientist, broad term.
Right, right. Have you ever been to Earth physically?
Yes.
Uh, what were your experiences? I mean, like when did you come here?
Well, when is a difficult question. Your time frame would likely your 50s from your own counting and your current environment, but that takes too much time to explain what time is to some in a timely manner.
Right, right. Um, so you said you spent a lot of time near Zeta Reticuli. I mean that's someplace that I always wanted to visit. You know, I've talked a lot to the Leonard person about that. Um, so like, I mean, can you say which star you mostly? I mean, I know you can't really describe what planet since we don't even have names for the planets there. But like, can you say which star you're orbiting or whatever, like the big one or the little one?
Well, that's different. Usually a little one, but it's not always stationary. It's not like we are locked in orbit.
Okay, right.
We lock in and out of orbit one or the other, and sometimes land on a planet and then another one.
Okay.
It's not stationary.
Uh, what do you like to do for entertainment? I mean, do you ever like watch Earth movies or play mind games or anything like that?
Mind games is better as a term. Not like I can play chess, but something similar in the mind.
Okay. Uh,
4D chess, perhaps.
okay. So now like I was want to learn a little bit about the anatomy of the Greys in general. Do you have lungs similar to us? To us, like which you breathe air in and out of your body?
I do have lungs. I don't necessarily breathe through my nose and mouth the way you do. It's more like through the skin.
Okay. Yeah, like I've heard before, like from some researchers that Greys like they intake a liquid kind of food through their skin, and I'd asked Leonard about that, and he said it's mainly through the mouth. So like do you ever intake liquid food through your skin?
I can, if necessary.
So like
From
why?
what I'm aware of, many beings in the general kind do that. They're able to, but it doesn't change the fact that it's easier to intake to the mouse.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm wondering. Like it seems easier just to intake it through the mouth. So why do some of them like intake it through their skin?
Because they can in some situations easier,
Okay,
contrary to your perception.
okay,
Because there's no physical action involved. It's not necessarily they smear food on their skin that it sink in. It's more like they're just getting sustenance the same way I'm breathing air. Particles. They absorb particles.
right, right. Do you have a heart which pumps something like blood through your body?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, just out of curiosity, what color is your blood?
Greenish, copperish.
Okay. Um, what do you eat?
That depends greatly what's currently present where I am. I can eat something from shrubs, berries, or something similar. Sometimes the juice is made out of those substances. Depends what region we are in and what's being served. I can eat living creatures,
Okay.
but it's not necessary.
So I know that like some species like Kalask like don't necessarily need to pee and poo for lack of a better term. Do do you do you need to pee and poo?
I can't sweat it out.
Okay. Uh, so what does your brain look like?
Probably it's not too dissimilar from yours. Obviously, a different shape, but the functionality is generally not that dissimilar.
Okay.